Welcome back to another episode of The Dive. It is just Luca and I here today. And Luca, looks like you're in a beautiful South Florida residence, so looks like you're having the time of your life, dude.
Beautiful weekend here. I tell you what, it's about 85 degrees. It's the spring training weather. You know what it's like. It's perfect. I came down here in 2021 for spring training my first time, and I saw this weather, and I go, I'm gonna move down here eventually. So I find myself here once again. So it's amazing. Visit my girlfriend for the weekend.
For a guy that loves cold showers, you sure do run away from the cold weather, huh?
Well, it's a different. Yeah, it's funny. You're not the first person that said that. It's not so much the cold that I like. It's the challenge of it. So once I get the challenge over with, it's like fuck the cold. So the showers are great, but I'm not gonna sit there and be elated, smile from ear to ear because I'm in 10-degree weather. But yeah, I could definitely. I'll tell you what though, the water doesn't get too cold in Florida, so we got to figure this out for when I move down here. I might get a cold water heater, if that's even a thing. Cold water cooler.
A cold water heater? So
Cold
ice?
water cooler. Yeah, that would make sense. Well, no, like how you have hot water heaters in the house. I might have to get a cold one for the tanks. But those are problems for the future. Nonetheless, beautiful weather here. It's not a cloud in the sky.
Why did? Oh, I guess because of the temperature, it doesn't get cold. That's crazy. I'd never even.
Remember the
that.
showers at the Twins? The shower would always
My
be
shower
hot.
in my apartment, it would get cold, for sure.
Yeah, not at the complex.
I mean, yeah, because there's guys constantly running hot water all the time. But you had the tubs. Those tubs were sub.
Yeah, they were good.
Those tubs were cold. Those tubs were cold.
We spent some time in there. That was nice. That's why I started my day. I would get in there for all PT work and everything. Loved it.
So let's get into something real quick. So this past week I was helping out at Swick baseball practice, and these two guys wanted to have a conversation, and we sat down, and I thought it was an interesting topic because I've heard it a lot. I've thought it. And he goes, what, like, how do I not have my identity tied to baseball? And so, like, as former players that have left the game, like, I just want to get your mentality or your ideas or your thoughts just on that topic of, like, have you ever had that where your attitude was or your identity was tied to the game or what? And just take me through your thought process behind it, and we'll go from there.
Have I ever experienced that? Listen, the reason I went through the struggles I went through mentally was because of that sole reason. I didn't know who I was without it. So when I went to college, I go to college and the only thing I know is Luca, the All-American, Luca, All-State player, Luca this, Luca that, Luca that could have gone first round, Luca that was offered all this money. That's all I know. That's where my confidence came from. It really wasn't me, who I was. It wasn't the son I was. It wasn't. At the time, the boyfriend that I was. It wasn't any of that. My identity came from how good I was. And as cocky as I may sound, that was the truth as an 18, 19-year-old, So that's the double-edged sword of having success at a young age and not experiencing much failure. And then I wouldn't say, it's a tough failure because it's out of my control to a certain extent with injuries, but then I got humbled and I didn't really know how to bounce back. I had nothing. I didn't know who I was outside of all that. When I didn't have all those successes, all those accolades, what was I proud of? So I definitely struggled with that. And what I will say is that I took a turn for the better when I forced myself to get out of the mentality of Luca as a baseball player. And I think I made some of the biggest growth in my life after 2021 season going into 2022. So that 2021-2022 off season. Okay. I went and took a job at Lululemon in that offseason. That was the first time I ever did that, and that was the first time I ever did anything like that. And it was almost like an ego hit for some reason, but I had this thing where I knew I wanted to do it. I needed to do it for myself. And that was having friends outside. I didn't tell them anything about baseball. None of the people that I worked with there knew I played baseball, nothing. And that's how I wanted it to be. And I made all these friends outside of it. All these friends that were just knew me as me, not Luca the baseball player. And they grew to love me, and I made great friendships, and the customers I loved, and the whole experience was incredible. I did the following off season as well, and I tell you what. Then I go into the 2022 season, and that was my best season in professional baseball. Started off in low A, ended up in double A, and is it a direct correlation to that? No, but the mentality, I think, was what really helped me throughout that season. Was just being me and not anything else, being comfortable with me. And I think having that one experience of finally doing something as Luca, just me, and not having baseball tied to it in any way, it really helped me. It really helped my mentality and just in terms of who I was. And I was also working on a lot of things, like a lot of the things that we talked about in the past in the podcast. I was working on.
What about
simultaneously, of course?
What about the experience at Lululemon like opened up your perspective?
It was just doing it. I can't explain it. I was in a weird mindset where, it was almost if you weren't a baseball player and you weren't all that, it was almost like I looked down on you. It was almost like I thought I was better than you. Like I hate to say it, but it's the truth. Like I just felt this weird, I had this weird superiority over people just because God blessed me with this ability. And at the end of the day, who fucking cares? Like, why does it make me better than anybody? But I had this weird thing. And when I went to work at Lululemon, it was like an ego hit, like I said. For what reason? The only reason was just because now I didn't have this weird status of people knowing I was a baseball player. And the thing is, it's strange because I felt this ego, but I didn't want people to know I played baseball. So subconsciously, I knew what I was doing. But then I grew to understand that I made better friends that way without having the status tied to it, because people actually grew to know me, to like me, and didn't want to spend time with me for whatever other reason. People don't know. They think we're all millionaires because we play professional baseball. So, you don't have any of that bullshit going on. It's just they want to spend time with you or not. And I found that people absolutely love me. And as nice as that was, it really. It was a really nice thing to experience, just because it kind of gave me this feeling of like, I don't really need baseball to have people like me, or and it's weird because I even say it because obviously it's true, but to someone who's struggling with some stuff, and especially confidence things, it's a big thing. Like when that's your main confidence thing, a lot like in college, the joke is when you're an athlete, you go into a bar, it's like, yeah, I'm on the baseball team. Yeah, I'm on the football team. You know what I mean? Like that whole thing. It's like that's how you get girls, let's say. And it's a joke because it's funny. That's the truth though, because those guys, that's all they really have that's tied to their name. If they didn't have that to say, what would be their appeal? So
what was
that experience at Lulu was huge for me.
What was your identity tied to then in those times working at Lulu? Like if you weren't a baseball player, then what were you? Like, were you just like a hard worker? Were you trying to be the best Lulu employee, or like, what were your thought process showing up to work every day at Lululemon?
Just be my best self. So it's funny. Every day, before I stepped onto the floor, I was in the back. I would, before I clocked in already, and before I stepped out onto the floor, opened the door and got out. I patted my chest 3 times. It was just I did that when I actually played as well, before every inning. It was reminders to be me, to be my best self, just be in this moment. My value comes from who I am, my heart, not what I do or anything like that. And that's what I did, actually. And it sounds funny because it's Lululemon. It's like, is it really that important? But it was a reminder for me to just go out there and be me. Just be me. Go talk to guests and do this and that and just be you. You don't got to be anyone else. You don't got to sit there and be the best employee, best sales. Just go out and be you. And I was really good at selling things. I wore all the clothes, so I had that that helped me out. If I was selling something, people saw it on me most of the time, so that helped. But just the idea of being me and going out and just enjoying it, and people actually enjoying being around me, and all these things, and it was just a great experience all around. I learned a lot about myself, a lot about people, and it was probably single-handedly one of the better decisions I could have ever done. I could have made for myself, especially like a lot of my growth, because a lot of my a lot of the things that I worked on was all behind closed doors. I think that's how it should be to a certain extent. And all these humility things I was working on, all these things, that was like a test for me. It was just, okay, put it to work. You don't have your identity tied to baseball. You want people to see you as more than a baseball player. Your value comes from who you are, not what you do, this and that. You say all these things, right? Well, go do it. So Lulu was kind of an opportunity for me to do that, and my buddy was telling me about it. He was doing it, and just a high school buddy, not anyone that I knew from professional baseball. And at first, I had this weird anxiety feeling. It was like the ego, like I said, I didn't want to have my ego hurt. It's like, oh, I work at Lulu. What if people saw me from high school, and I was just this big shot? What if they see me, right? Then I was just like, that feeling in your stomach is exactly why you need to do it. If you didn't have that feeling, it means you wouldn't be challenged, it means you wouldn't be uncomfortable, it means it wouldn't really do anything for you. But the fact that I had that feeling made me even want to do it more. And like I said, I'm glad I did. I'm glad, God pushed me to do it, however you want to say, pushed me. And it was, like I said, incredible experience. My brother ended up actually doing it as well when he was in his MBA program in college. That was something he did on the side. So
what do you learn? What do you learn about yourself?
Clothes.
You said you learned a lot. Yeah, you said you learned a lot about yourself. So go into that. Let's hear what something that you learned that has changed your life dramatically through that experience.
I wasn't really good at being friends with women. As weird as that may sound, Lululemon is a very woman-dominated brand to a certain extent. They made their money, their bread and butter is their yoga pants. That's really what they're known for. I would say it's getting better, but I would say it's about a 70-30 split from women to men's clothes. Now it's going to be 60-40, but when I was working there, it was pretty, especially my store. But I became friends with women and talking to them and friendly with them. I wasn't, it may sound strange, but I never had to. And for me, it was always tied the relationship with women. I always tied to more of a sexual thing, And if it wasn't that, it wasn't. I didn't, I didn't want to be friends with just why. Why would that be anything? Of course. And then if we're on teams always, we're on guys all the time, So it wasn't something I was really doing consistently. Even in college, I would go to class, but then I was really around guys all the time. And I'd go to tutoring and all that stuff at night at the student athlete center and stuff, and I would see other student athletes there as well. But I didn't really spend a lot of time with them, and it's a weird thing. And it's strange to say, but I really learned a lot about women, how they operate, and being friends with them. And that was a big lesson for me, and I'm very grateful for that, because being able to be friends with women, and get over that weird, I don't know what the word is. The sexual aspect of it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just not having anything tied to it. I guess. Just, that was one thing I learned. Another thing was just, like I mentioned before, is just being me in a different environment, and just giving myself freedom to just be who I was, and being comfortable with that, and not having the person that I always attributed to myself to being when being a baseball player, a professional baseball player at that wasn't anything. That wasn't a talking point. That wasn't anything. That brought nothing to the table. But I didn't say anything. It would have brought something to the table if I had mentioned it and I had made that a point, Mm-hmm. But I didn't want that to be the case. So I didn't allow that to be something that people attributed to me, and it was awesome, and at that first year I did everything I could, and at the end I kept saying it's like I was a seasonal employee during the winter time, in the off season, and I kept saying it's like I gotta leave in March, right? And so they're thinking, I was like, what the fuck does this guy do? Why does he have to leave in March? Why not April? Why not why March? And I just kept saying, I gotta leave in March. I'll go to my full-time job, blah, blah, blah. And it's funny too, because I created my schedule. My schedule was all afternoon stuff. I couldn't work until before 1 o'clock, I think it was. And obviously for training purposes and right that, I would do my training. I'd go home, eat for a little bit, and then I'd go right to work. So there's a little things that they're kind of just never really thought of. And then the last month, one of the employees, Kareen, or one of our the assistant manager. She was like, Luca, where are you going? I said, Florida. She's like, why? What do you do? Like, why aren't you going to be home for like 6, 7? Like, why aren't you going to be home? Like, what's going on? Why can't you work? You know what I mean? And because they asked me if I could do like, maybe I work on a weekend or something if I'm around. I said, no, I'm not going to be home for a few months. Like, I got to leave. And she like sat me down. She cornered me. She's like, what do you do? Are you a CIA agent? Are you an FBI agent? What the fuck is going on? And I told her, I was like, Kareem, it's not really important. She was like, well, you're telling me. And I go, all right. I'm a professional baseball player. I got to go to spring training. Is it that big of a deal? And she was like, what? And she made like whatever. And she was like, so like what position? And I was like, this is exactly why does it matter? And so it was the whole like, the basic thing. And I was just like, I'm a pitcher. And she was like, oh, how hard do you throw? I was like, listen, we're not doing this right now. But, so those reasons are exactly why I didn't want anyone to know anything. But yeah, no, the experience itself was great. And then the following off season, even though the baseball player was tied to it to a certain extent, because I had that foundation, people knew me prior to that. They got to know me for me. And
okay, so I got a question. You're talking about like the freedom in being yourself.
Yeah.
So pre getting that job, and then post after that job, like what does that mean? Like
completely differently.
Yeah, define what that means to you in the sense of like you had to be yourself before, or were you not yourself before, or like?
Well, okay, so some of the things that I was working on, the reason a lot of this to make sense of this, things I was working on was my main thing. Remember, like my journaling, everything. My first thing was my word statement. My word statement is my value comes from who I am, not what I do. I took it a step further. Is my value comes from who I am, not what I do, not what I have, not who I'm with, not what I look like. It comes from who I am. So those are the things that I was really working on. Those are like my main things. My value comes from who I am, not what I do. And so with that being the case, these are things I started working on during the season of 2021. And basically, these are things I was working on, but I never really put to action because I didn't really have an opportunity to. It was just in season, this and that. I knew these are principles that I wanted to focus on because a lot of things I was worried about was, in terms of performance anxiety and a lot of these things that I dealt with after like following my injuries. I had a hard time with these, and the biggest thing I could think of was, not attributing myself, not caring what the fans thought when any of that. And in order to get past that, I really had to put myself in this category. Like, I had to put myself in this position where I was focusing on being me rather than going out there and trying to impress anybody. And these are things that I was struggling with. And I'm sorry, there's stuff going on in the background. But these are things I was working on, and I get home for the off season and stuff, and this opportunity, like I said, I was talking to my friend, this opportunity presented itself as something that it just kind of slapped me across the face as something that it was a direct correlation to what I was trying to focus on. And so after I do that and I go back for the 2022 spring training, one of the main things, like I said, was focusing on just being me and not anyone else, not caring about anything else, and not having my value come from what I did, how my performance went, anything like that. It was more so who I was. And that's when a lot of the things that I was focusing on, a lot of the check marks of a good outing, let's say, changed from performance oriented to mentality oriented. And are these direct correlations to, let's say, working at Lulu? No. But are these lessons applied and scaled? Yes. And I think that's the thing. It's the principle of you don't know where to start. We'll start somewhere, and things will present themselves. You don't know where it's going to go, but if you start somewhere and you do something, you may learn one thing that may teach you this, and then that may apply to something that you didn't think it did, and then that thing gets scaled, and then you got the ball rolling. But basically, what I'm saying is after my outings, my positivity journal before I left the stadium, and I would write positives that we've talked about. What I found was that it wasn't so much I never wrote, I had 7 Ks in 3 innings, or I had this outcome. I had this, that. I threw 3 perfect innings, 2 perfect innings, or very results oriented. It was after a walk, I was in control of my thoughts, or it was, no matter what happened, I was grounded. I didn't let my mind wander. I didn't let my mind, feed negativity to me, or I was able to come back from a 3-1 count and battle through that, or I was able to do this and that. I was able to see the positives, or I failed today and I felt fine afterwards. That's a big positive. And those became the positives. And then what I learned from that was basically, when are the bad outings actually then? If you don't actually tie it to performance, when is it ever bad? Because in theory, it's like, all right, the good outings are good, and then you can still learn something from it. But then the bad outings, bad, air quotes, are still good because there's something to learn from it. More to learn from it than the good outings. Now, are you going to make a career out of bad outings? No, obviously. But the whole part of being a professional is being consistent, So if you can just be consistent with what you're doing, the consistency doesn't come. The consistency you'd hope, of course, comes from it creates consistency in outcome, of course. But as well as that's few and far between. You're not going to have consistency in that aspect. But if you have consistency in the way you're going about pitch to pitch, and the way you're thinking, the way you are, who you are, what you're doing, well, then that's all a manager can ever ask for, a team or an organization can ever ask of you. If you're doing that consistently, then the outcomes will be somewhat consistent to the point where, they're going to give you opportunities. No, not even the best guys in the big leagues are consistent in that aspect. They're not throwing dots every pitch. They're making mistakes. They're getting hit around. But it's the collective consistency outweighs the negative outcomes that happen sometimes. So that mentality really helped me throughout that off season, and then it helped me specifically in the 2022 season. And I wouldn't have had the jump, outcome wise, if I didn't have that jump mentally. And it was a great feeling. And I the thing that I was most proud of was I never felt more like myself while having success. And before, it was almost like I had this success and I couldn't wait to go read the newspaper. I couldn't wait to see all the positive things like people were saying about me. And it wasn't that at all. As a matter of fact, after good outings, this and that, if I got media people needed to talk to me, I'd hate it. I didn't want it because I didn't feel like I was worthy of it. Even though I had the good outings, I didn't feel like I deserved it. I felt like I was just like, why me? There's nothing special about me. I'm just going out there and just doing what I do and make myself and God proud. That's the only thing I focused on. And like I said, is all this tied to Lulu? No, but yes, at the same time. So it's a weird dynamic, and everybody, to each their own. Everyone finds different things and different experiences. But
would you say like your anxiety and you went away and you became more relaxed, and like that relaxedness and led to more comfortable and more confidence, therefore like allowing that like consistency in that process to like evolve into who you wanted to be? Like, because I feel like for me sometimes I used to get caught up in, oh, I gotta do this or I gotta do that, instead of just like, hey, like I'm gonna get there, like I'm gonna get there. Like I don't need to rush. I need to take what I'm doing and I need to do it full speed right here, right now, and then go forward from there.
100%.
So what leads to that relaxation, that confidence, that comfortableness, in your opinion?
I'm a big believer that my confidence came from my preparation, and preparation.
What about
preparation looked like?
What about preparation at Lululemon? What did that look like outside of ball?
Well, that's my point.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
My confidence as a person, I'm able to go out and be me in all these. Like, we talked about it before. It's your quote, not mine. It's what's the alpha? You mean the alpha? Being the alpha comes from being you, no matter where you are, who you're with, what you're doing, or how you feel. So how does that happen? How are you yourself, and no matter the outcome, no matter where you are, who you're with, what you're doing, how does that even happen? Well, you have to know yourself really well. Well, how? Work, spending time with yourself, closing your eyes, spending some time between your ears, and really getting to know yourself and what you like, what you do, who you are, and knowing it's just spending time with yourself and doing this work and meditative work and all these things, pushing yourself, doing things that challenge you. For me, cold exposure and things of that sort. I was doing a lot of breath hold stuff, and why? It's like, well, just show myself that I'm in control. When I want to breathe, I still got more. It's little things like that. Like, why do people, push themselves to do ultra marathons? Why do people do marathons? Why do people do Ironmans? Like, it's just like, it's the challenge. But what's the challenge for? I think internally it's to show yourself that you can, that you're in control, that when you want to stop, you're not going to. And, when you get to that point, you realize that, you're capable of that. It's powerful, but that's the work. And then, of course, no matter the situation you're in, then you can just be yourself, be free. Because why? It's like, well, you know that you're comfortable with who you are and what you've done, and it's weird to say, but you're almost like worthy of being the person yourself that you are. People like to act and be and say they're this big dog and big alpha, in these situations, act like the big dick in the room, and flaunt all this and that, wear the $2,000 suits, and it's like, be that guy. But who fucking cares? Because a lot of times when they're alone, who are they? I'm not saying all of them like that, but more likely than not. And I live in a place in New York City where you find way more of the one rather than the other, and I mean the bad rather than the good. If you want to act a certain way, you have to act that way no matter where you are, and that comes from acting that way when you're alone by yourself. And it's being comfortable being the version of yourself that you are constantly, just who you are. And then basically, like I said, the confidence, no matter the situation, comes from just being you. So that was something that I dealt with at Lululemon, that I learned at Lululemon, and then it just translated to the field when I got out there. What's the difference between like seeing a thousand guests at Lulu every day, but then going out there and performing in front of 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 5,000 people? Of course, there's the failure component. If I don't sell a pair of pants, it's different than letting up a home run and the bottom of the ninth inning. It's a little different, but at the same time, it's what's the difference? What's the difference? I leave work, or I leave work at the stadium, or I leave work at Lulu. I'm still going home and sleeping at night. At the point, what's the difference? What am I gonna not sleep because I'm worried about what 2,000 people care about, like what they think about? And at a certain point in my life, yes, it's exactly what it was. And it's just that confidence and that feeling of that secureness and that peace within came from the work I was doing on a daily basis, that work I was doing in the morning, the stuff we talked about last week. It's just, it's not about it's not about this moment. It's about preparing myself for what's to come, and that is constant every day, and that is what the confidence comes from. And that's why I felt prepared for anything, and that's why when things get tough, it never actually feels like it's overwhelming, because you're always prepared to a certain extent. And that 2022 season was a big marker for me, and then I followed up with 2023, and I was even in a better place mentally. Things happen, obviously injury-wise, or unfortunate, but.
So let's say you don't sell a pair of pants, right? And like you're like, oh, like, what's the self-evaluation there that led you to that freedom of like, oh, it no longer matters, like the freedom to let go of other people's opinions, let go of all of that stuff? Because I as a younger athlete, I think we both, obviously you're talking about it, but I experienced it as well. It's like you're worried about what other people think about you.
Yeah.
But like the minute that you let all of that go and you just embrace who you are and what works for you and what gets you going, it changes everything. So like trying to figure out that process, or trying to figure out like what allows that for happen, what would you say that is? Like, is it the challenges of new things? Is it the challenges, and like is it the combination of that awareness? Like, I know we're talking about it, but like, is there any pinpoint specific thing that we can help people out?
What was the first part to that?
So like letting go of other people's opinions, and like Peterson talked about it in one of his books, and like like it kind of like hit me hard because it was like, man, like that's something I hold on to a lot. It's like, man, I wonder what like one of my favorite questions used to be, what was your first impression of me? And it was like, man, like what am I saying? What am I asking? Yeah. Like I'm asking what your opinion is of me. Like, and like I don't know if that's a great question. Like it's an interesting question, but I don't know.
Why would it not be a great question? Well, if anything, if you're asking the right person, you're getting an honest response. And if they're going to tell you anything negative, it's an opportunity for you to figure something out that you weren't aware of, or you're like, well, actually, that's exactly how I want to be. That's exactly how I want to act. I'm being that. You can't control how everyone thinks, but I think it's a great question. You've asked me a few times.
Right. Like, so I guess it's good feedback. Like I'm getting good feedback, and then I guess it comes down to what? It comes down to me applying or practicing, or 3 people have said this. And one person said that. It's like, okay, why did that one person say that? Was I acting different? Was I in a different state of mind?
Or a different person. You
right.
may get, different personalities.
Right. But like, I do think I need to ask somebody that like I trust. So like as
exactly,
what I mean? Like is like as we have a conversation, I can't like it can't be the first conversation of like what was your first impression of me, because like I don't know anything about you. So like what is your what are your filters? How do you approach life? XYZ.
Why should I adjust anything I'm doing because you say so?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like
100%.
Like it might be a good question, but it has to be asked to the right person.
100%.
Or with the right timing.
I agree. But to your point about how you were saying about helping people with regard to what?
Like coaching. Like as far as like when I don't want to.
Well, I think like, what you said to before we got on the call. I don't think as a coach you can give a player a better response, and to give
feedback,
context to it. He was saying basically that a kid came up to him and was like, I don't want my identity to be tied to baseball, and your response was either have your identity be in baseball or in Christ, but one of the two it has to be, and well, I don't know how a coach could give a better response than that, honestly.
Well, it's like, why not? Like, what is the fear in being tied into what you're doing? Like being removed from the game. Like, I was on the phone with Matt yesterday, and like, there's nothing I want to do right now more than go play ball at the highest level. So it's like, what's wrong with my identity when I was playing, being tied in the game? Because if it's all I want to do, and I put all my work and I put all my awareness and I put all my focus into what I'm doing. Like, my aim is to be the best possible person / baseball player as possible. Mm-hmm. So, like, my identity being there is not necessarily a bad thing. Now, like, going back a little bit to John is, like, adding Christ into that and putting him at the forefront and letting go of that identity. It might be the perfect combination because, like, you're aiming at the highest level. You're going to put in the work. You're going to have in the awareness. So it's, like, make sure your priorities in order, and then you like you talked about, you have the preparation, the consistency, like the attitude to get you to like where you want to go just by letting it all go. So like I would like, now that we're talking about it a little bit, is like understand that like that might be your identity to outside perspective, but your identity comes from who you think you are, and like being yourself is exactly the only thing you need to do.
Yeah, for sure. You're just gonna get a biased answer from me because solely I experienced the most success I could have on a professional basis after I detached myself from the identity of baseball. So that's how I view it. Now, if I had
what did you attach it to once you let it go? Nothing.
God,
right.
Yeah. So
continue.
My performance changed completely after I went out there and only focused on making myself and God proud. And we talked about this before, of course, and when I'm journaling about things post outings and post days out in the field, and it wasn't just outings that I got in the game, or days I got in the game, but the positives came from anything. Being a good person, having a good heart. Those are the positives. You know, what makes me and God proud? God doesn't give a shit, in my opinion. I don't know. I haven't talked to him. I try to, but he doesn't answer. At least not physically. But he answers in plenty of other ways, probably more important ways. But at least, nonetheless, I don't get a verbal response. So I'm assuming he doesn't care if I go out there and throw a perfect game. If I throw a perfect game and then I go and, you know, I'm a piece of shit to my wife, let's say. What kind of positive day is that? You know? So it's about being the person. And then, of course, the outcomes will come, and, you know, it's just being the same person no matter what. That's the main goal. But basically, for me, I experienced all this when I detached myself from baseball. And, you know, I can't say that, you know, I think every person needs to do that, but I do think every person needs to experience themselves outside of, you know, their profession, or outside of what they think they're best at, or whatever it is. Because when you're really good at something, that's how the world works. That's how, you know, a meritocracy works. You know, like if you're really good at something, you benefit from the gift you were given. You know, that's how people are successful in this world. So yeah, to a certain extent, it's gonna bring a lot to your life, but doesn't mean that it needs to bring a lot to yourself. You know, not everyone in the world is gonna know you for you. They're gonna know you for your positivities, the things that you can offer to the world. You know, a lot of people know Elon Musk for, you know, what he's capable of in terms of making rocket ships and ways he's making these cars and doing all these things he's able to do. But a lot of people don't know him, you know, what he's like in between the years, what kind of person he is. Like, you know, like I'm saying, you know, he's not a good person, but you don't get to know that person. People get to know the positives, but you have to live with yourself always. You don't. How fast are you gonna care when you're struggling, when you're going through some shit? How long will that good outing, or how long will that you know, payday help you until things actually get tough? So,
well, on the flip side of that is, like, if you have a bad outing, why does the bad outing last way much longer than the good outing? Like, you forget about a home run borderline immediately, but the second that you know, go 0 for 4 with 3 punch outs, it's a different story. You're holding on to it for a week. So, like, there's a difference right there in just positive and negative. It's like, let go of both of them as quickly as possible.
Exactly. Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think when people get to that point, their career takes off.
Right.
I think that's the difference. I think that is the actual difference. You don't get many first basemen or second basemen or shortstops or third basemen in the big leagues that are moping in the infield after a strikeout in the previous inning. It's like, why? It's like, well, they're there because they figured out how to not do that. Because they know that next play may somehow, one way or another, when all things come said and done, that play they make, because they didn't attach themselves to that failure of the previous at-bat, got their team to win. You know, they experienced the failure of it, what it was like to be that way, and how it wasn't the way, and they learned, I can't be this way. Well, and, you know, it of course, every person's journey isn't the exact same, of course, but I think people at the highest level of whatever they're doing, a lot of them are there because they're able to detach themselves from the success of what they're doing.
Well, like,
and that's a big lesson.
So you hit a home run and you're filled with that positive, oh, I can do anything. Like, the minute that you think you can do anything, that fly ball or that ground ball, you're going to mess it up.
Exactly.
But, like, the same goes the negative way, too, is it's like, oh, I punched out, like, I suck, this and that. Like, what good is going to come from that? So it's just like, okay, I sucked. I punched out. Okay, well, now it's time to go make a play. Please hit me the ball. Please hit me the ball. Like, that is, like, the response to a negative emotion. And, like, the positive response is, I just hit a home run, but, like, I'm who I am. Like, I can't get caught up in the emotion. And, like, people are pretty good at letting go of the successes, because, you know, I just we just remember the negatives way much more. So it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
why can't, like, what is so difficult about letting go of the negative? What is so difficult, like, even in life too, like, what is so difficult about letting go of the heartbreak? Like, what is so difficult, like, why, like, when you're in love, you forget about it, what, 30 seconds later, but like the minute that, like, oh, it's no longer there, it's on constant
Yeah.
repeat in your brain. Like,
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying? So it's just like,
Yeah.
the consistency of letting go either way, or creating a response of the same magnitude, positive and negative, can go a long way.
Yeah. I tell you what, I can't give you a very good answer because this is something that I work on every day. There's a reason why my journaling is called positivity journaling, because my whole life I was not trained, I guess I trained myself, it's my own fault, of course, but I trained myself, whatever wording you want to use, to glass half empty, always. But why? Would I have been the same player if I had not been that way? I don't know. You have to hyperfixate on the negatives if you want to be spectacular at what you're doing. You have to hyperfixate on the negatives so that they come less. But then I also got bit in the ass with that, because I hyperfixate on my negatives so bad to the point where I stopped focusing on my positives, and yeah, that creates an issue in and of itself. But it's also like, dude, the saying goes, you get 100 people, 99 people tell you you're good looking. The one person says you're unattractive. Well, that one person, what the fuck's wrong with them? Now that's one person, 1% is going to be in your mind. Why? It's like, well, instinctively, the humans don't like being told they're inadequate in any way, shape, or form. But I tell you what, though, I've never met someone who is the person who I've met who is the best at forgetting failure or forgetting negatives is my girlfriend. I've never met anyone like her before. I don't know if it's because I don't know if she lacks memory or something. She doesn't. She doesn't. She has a master's from University of Florida. Like, she's brilliant. She speaks nearly 5 languages. Like, so her memory's fine. But I tell you what, dude, when something happens in her life and it's a negative, she's gone. It's gone. She's the happiest person I've ever met in my life. Ever.
What have you figured out about it?
Dude, I don't know.
Oh,
I
no.
try to analyze her. I try to analyze it. And when I try to ask her questions, she's like, "Are you analyzing me?" She's like, "Don't hyperanalyze me." I'm just like, "Listen, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know what you want me, like, I'm not some." But I sit there and try to figure out, like, how does your mind work? What the hell is going on? Like, we need to mass scale this. We can.
Well, let's bring her out and
More
ask
people
her.
need to be like you.
Let's bring her out and ask her what makes her so happy.
Dude, if you ask her this, she'd honestly probably tell you cherry tomatoes, blueberries, and fucking her garden over here. Dude, she's just the happiest person in the world. Just sheer joy in this woman, dude, is incredible. I mean, it's one of the main things I love about her. It's hard to have a bad day when you're around someone with that energy, but yeah, going forward, I would definitely love to, have her on and just have that be the thing. Why are you happy? And obviously.
Well, I mean, what I guess a better question is, what allows her to forget all the bad things that happen? Or
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like that's. I don't know if it's. I can't be the ignorance is bliss idea, because she's not ignorant. She's very, very intelligent.
But she lets it go immediately.
Yeah.
So how about?
No,
but
it's a
so
gift.
does she hold on to those positive moments? Those, like, oh, I got, like, I don't know.
Yes.
Longer than the negative. And so it's like inverse of what
I would say
do,
she's the exact opposite of what the human. She's the exact opposite of what a typical human is. Like, that's what I think how she is.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I don't just say that because she's my girlfriend. Like, I don't want to say, like, she's my girlfriend for a reason, blah blah blah. But, like, she drew me for a reason, and, like, that was one of the main things. Honestly, just has this incredible ability to do this, and I learn from her so much. It's incredible, and And of course, she'll say to me sometimes, she's like, your ability to forget, it's not good. I'm just like, no, maybe yours is just too good. but no, she's definitely right when she tells me these things. So, she gives me an opportunity. She's always giving me opportunities to learn. And if these are the aspects she's pushing me in, I mean, you tell me a better, part of your life to be, to be pushed. So, I definitely find myself, I'm a lot more joyful and happy and easygoing, let's say, around her. And I just hope that when we move in with each other, I'm actually able to be productive still, because I don't know, I don't really care about anything when I'm around her, so I gotta find a happy medium. But no, so going back to what you were saying though, I think being able to detach yourself or attach yourself in terms of identity to a sport, it's a double-edged sword. It comes with its negatives, it comes with its positives. And I think if we're talking about having to have both, I think if I played longer and I was given the opportunity to stay healthy and given the opportunity to keep going, and I played for 10, 12 years, let's say, I think at one point I probably would have made that turn, but only after having all that foundation of myself and God being my main, not myself and God being my main grounding point, then I think I would. It's the same idea as the chaos and order idea. You have to sell out for the opposite of order when you're full in chaos. You sell out for order. And after you get to a certain point where you're comfortable with that, well, then you implement chaos and maintain your order, So I think there is a place for both, but I don't think there's a place for your identity being only your sport if you haven't found out your identity outside of it.
So, like, in sport, like, whether it be basketball, whether it be baseball, whether it be pickleball, it's like, if you're off balance, you're out of position. You're not in the, like, you're going to experience failure. Like, when you have that balance and that peace, like, you have the ability to succeed way higher than if, I'm way out front on my front foot. Like, I might have a little success out there just because I got lucky. But, like, if I would have stayed, like, centered and balanced, if I would have stayed balanced, I would have had an opportunity to succeed. So, like, it's the same in life. Like, if I stay balanced between, like, maybe I'm having a little more negative, so I need to be, like, I need to force the positives. Or maybe I'm having a lot of positives, and I need to, like, seek out, like, I'm experiencing a lot of success, so maybe I need to hyperfixate on a negative to drive me, to motivate me a little bit. And then, like, maybe, like, it's a darker time for you. Like, hey, man, I have a lot of negative going on. Like, I need to seek out the positivity. So, like, that's the balance, and it's constantly evolving, like, based on what's going on. Like, your balance is never going to be the same in every specific moment. But, like, mentally, you just have to know where to find the calm in between the chaos and the order. Like, the art of letting go.
100%. I think we're late to the party, because I think the yin and yang, they figured it out way before us.
Right.
You have to ride the middle, and each side has, each has the opposite incorporated inside of it. But you have to ride the middle of the masculine and feminine. But no, everything you're saying, 1,000% over.
And
you have to.
The only way to know both sides is to go extreme. Like, be extremely negative for however long. Be extremely positive forever how long. So, like, in order to have that awareness within, you have to push a limit to both sides of the party. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not just going to be like, oh, like, I'll be positive today. Like, it's not like, I want to be like an absolute ray of sunshine. Or I want to be Edgar Allan Poe. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, go deep and dark and depressive, and then go extremely positive. Like, you have the ability to control it, and then be like, okay, like, I liked this when I was positive, or dude, I really pushed myself when I was negative. So, like, if I combine those two, now it's balance. Now I have it. Now it's within my control.
Yeah, I mean, I I hear what you're saying. I think push yourself to be completely depressive. I think that'd be tough. I don't know if I'd be able to do that, but I hear what you're saying completely, 100%. I mean, essentially, it's just knowing yourself for all your sides, and be able to be yourself, no matter how you're feeling. I guess I guess essentially kind of to full circle. But that's one of the biggest traits a person could possibly have. Be yourself no matter what. What's better than that?
Well, and like
that's you in your depressive states. That's you in your positive states. That's you when you're neutral. Like if you can just be yourself, I mean, you're powerful. People know what to expect. When people know what to expect from you, no matter what you're doing, consistency is everything. So if you can't be consistent with yourself, how you feel about yourself, I mean, you got no shot at anything else. So,
And it's just like, and I agree with you. You don't want to push yourself into a depressive episode, but there's going to be something negative that happens in your life. Like, this world's broken. Like, it might not happen today. It might not happen tomorrow. Like, for me, like, in my life, like, up to this point, like, my hardest thing that I ever experienced was Tommy John surgery. Is like the game getting taken away from me. That, like, it was my life. So it's like, dude, those first 2, 3, 4, 5 months, like, to say I was positive would be a lie. But, like, I consistently shown up and put in the work. But to say I was positive would be a lie. Like, people would be like, man, like, I don't know how you showed up every day. And, like, I don't know how you put in the work every day. But, like, that was just me. That was me being me. But my emotion and my energy was negative. And then all of a sudden it's like, man, like, who cares? Like, who cares about Tommy John? Who cares about this? Like, whatever it is, like, let's let it go. Let's be happy, and let's find, like Chad Jackson, like, find a new hobby. So it's like, now I'm immersing myself into something different that's allowing me to take off, and it's like there's failures with learning, having a new hobby, because you're gonna suck at it, right? So, like, my identity was no longer baseball success or failure. Now it was like the balance between was becoming who I am. Like, who am I truly? So, like, I'm learning a new thing, which is teaching me new things about myself, and then I take that to the baseball field. So now I'm learning new things about my old self. It's like, man, like, why did I get frustrated about an overthrow? Like, I tried something new. Okay.
Essentially, it's humility.
Right.
I mean, that in and of itself, humility is one of the biggest things you could possibly learn. And that's going to help you in anything you do. So I'm sure through your whole experience, did humility help you get through those times? Having these things you learned about yourself and stuff like that. Would you say it was a correlation to humility? Is that something you recognize, or is that something kind of which is a byproduct?
I don't know. Take me through the definition of humility, like humbling myself and thinking of myself less.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not thinking of yourself less. It's just not assuming yourself to be superior to everyone.
Okay.
Being humble.
Yeah. So I would say a lot of it had to do with fear. So, like, during the the surgery, they took a graft out of my hamstring. So, like, walking or running was, like, one of the hardest things I had to do. And, like, my arm, like, my buddy is going through it too, and he's like, dude, what I had to look forward to. And I was like, and I was recalling my experience, and, dude, it took me, my arm felt way better than my leg for 99% of the whole experience. And there was a day, like, I went to the bar with my girlfriend at the time, and it was a country. I was like, oh, I'm going to have 2 beers. So I did. I had 2 beers, and I got home. It was late in the morning, and I was exhausted. So, like, it's Florida. It's hot. It's humid. I wasn't taking care of myself properly at the time. Mentally, physically, emotionally, period. And I go to take off my boot, and my hamstring goes, it makes like a popping noise when I take off my boot. And and I'm laying on the floor, dude, in my apartment. And I'm just laying there, and I'm like, dude, like, I didn't know who to call. I didn't know who to text. I was like, dude, I'm screwed. It's like a Friday night, or it's a Saturday night. We have Sunday off, and I think we had Monday off. I think Monday was a holiday. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, dude, what am I gonna do? Like, I can't move. Like I mentally paralyzed myself. Like, I wasn't actually hurt. So I literally, I think I crawled or like hobbled into the bed, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna lay here. We'll deal with it in the morning. So obviously I'm laying there wide awake, like there's no chance I'm sleeping. I finally fall asleep at X time, I don't know. And I wake up the next morning and I'm like, what do I do? Do I get up and try to walk? Do I just lay here and surrender? And so it was like, I'm like, okay, screw it. So I got up and it was like, oh, like it hurts, but it's like nothing's happened. Like I'm fine. Like it's there's soreness, there's whatever, and I was like, okay, like this is whatever. And it was like that. It was that fear that I was gonna have to go into another surgery, and then like I was like, okay, like if this is the thing that I have to deal with, then this is the thing I have to deal with. Like I have to put all my energy into making myself better person. Like I have to take care of my body. I have to do what I set out to do. Like there's no longer like this partying, this egocentrical, this oh, whatever happens happens. Like no, like I need to take control. So like that was a massive moment of self accountability for me. So like that accountability took away my ego, because like I realized that how much I wasn't doing. So like I started cooking, I started cleaning my apartment, I started like, and yeah, like there were still some things that I did that I shouldn't have, but it was like that moment specifically, I'll never forget it, because like fear put me in that position. Like I was like, I'm never going to be able to play again. Like my leg is screwed. And really, like that Tuesday or that Monday, I got in and I'm talking to the PTs, and like I'm hobbling more than normal, and they're like, "What's up?" And I was like, "Yo, like my hamstring popped." And they were like, they did all the tests and they did all the strength things, and they're like, "We're thinking it's just a scar tissue pop." But like, man, that put the fear of God into me. Like it was a life-changing moment, because like I realized everything I wasn't doing for myself.
Yeah.
Like that was a long-winded answer, but like I lacked like I think accountability leads to humility, because that accountability makes you realize how little you're actually doing. Like whereas like before that, I was having success left and right, and anything I did theoretically turned to gold. So like I didn't I had failure here or there, but nothing life-changing, nothing setback material.
Yeah.
And then like bang, like I'm never playing again. That was literally when my leg did that. I was like, I'm done. Like ACL, I don't know. Like I'm out another 12 months. Like those were the thoughts that I was having, and I was like,
yeah, the negative,
all the negative. Where it's like, man, like when everybody, like when all the people that I trusted were like, hey, dude, you're fine. It's gonna hurt for a week, but like this was probably a good thing. When that message was like finally took, it was like, okay, now it's time to get to work. And all of a sudden, like my process changed. Like my consistency didn't change, but my process and my accountability and those aspects changed. Like they evolved into where I wanted to go and who I was becoming. And like you said before, like it's still a work in progress. Like it's the farthest thing from perfected. Yeah, but like it's leading me in that direction. Like I try to think of it as a staircase. Like you go up, you plateau. Instead of like riding the wave, like I would rather ride the staircase. Like I would rather plateau than go down,
Yeah.
Like I might not be getting better, but like I'm trying to learn. And like that's my plateau process. Like I'm looking for something to learn as I climb the stairs.
Where do you find that journey takes you now without the sport and without these things? I mean, I'm sure obviously you're learning things on a daily basis, of course, but do you find that since you don't have, last year when we were talking in the off seasons, you were talking about a lot of things you're working on a P3. I mean, it was a lot of like, self-evaluation, and I felt this and I felt that, hip rotation and leg block and this and that. Now that you don't have that, how much of that same mentality, let's say, do you feel like you're getting on a consistent basis? Do you feel like it's lacking? Do you feel like it's more?
I think it's lacking. Well, I don't think. I know it's lacking. But what I do to try to combat it is to learn something new. So like, I grew up on a farm, and everybody I talk to is like, "You don't hunt," and it's like, man, it's like, why don't I hunt? Well, Dad never did it, but that's no excuse. But my brother-in-law is big into it. My brother-in-law is a big game hunter, and he loves it, and he knows it. So, like, I've talked about this a little bit before, is just like teaching myself new things, and like learning, like I'm learning to shoot my bow. Like, I literally have it right here, and like there's so much to learn about the bow past shooting it. It's like, okay, now I get to set it up how I like. Now I get to add like modifications to how I like. So it's like learning something new, and then like it's me. It's always like, to me, I take everything to the extreme. It's like, how do I like become an expert at shooting this bow? So now I can go out and into the forest or into the woods and go hunt, you know? So it's like that process of like learning how to hunt. So like it's small steps of like, okay, now I got it dialed in. Like I can pull the bow back. I can, hit my target that I'm aiming at, like with a consistent repertoire with small groupings. And it's just like, okay, like now I need to learn the art of hunting. So it's like, now I need to go sit up in a tree and figure out how to, put myself in a position to get a deer.
Well, it's funny. It's funny. A lot of people who do hunt, they say that's their favorite part of the hunting experience, and you haven't even done it yet. A lot of people say that their favorite part of the hunt is getting up in the morning. It's calm. You get up in the tree, and you're just still. It's just you and your thoughts, peace. That's what they say their favorite part is. I've never done it, but I'm curious what you're going to experience when you start doing that. If you're going to feel that same kind of meditative state, let's say. You got to be quiet. Obviously, you don't want to scare the deer away. But yeah, that's
it all takes preparation. Like I gotta go set up my bow stand. I gotta put out cameras. Like it incorporates everything that we're talking about, and just like ball, like you have to be prepared for ball for the game. Like I have to be prepared for the hunt. And, like, I don't know, switching jobs and trying to find jobs has taught me a lot, too. And I think that's kind of why I'm lacking a little bit, is because I've been so focused on, I need a job, instead of, like, letting go. And then, like, I got a job, and now I'm switching to a different job. So there's just, like, a lot mentally going on that maybe I know that I'm uncomfortable with, because I'm unaware of what that world is like.
Absolutely.
So
that's the biggest... That's always gonna be scary, dude. That's gonna be terrifying, the unknown. But then you realize once you get there, one of the main things that I told myself when I was basically getting into a completely different world. I mean, the medical field is, let's say, not the opposite of baseball, but pretty damn fucking close. I mean, what changes if nothing changes is a motto that I like to tell myself, especially when I'm going through a lot of change. What changes? Like, okay, the environment, people you're around, sure, it's changed. But what changes if you don't change? What changes if you don't change? Nothing. What you think, the way you act. Like, people are just people. If you're you, people are gonna enjoy being around you. You're gonna make new friends. You're gonna be you. What's the difference if you're making friends with professional baseball players, or if you're making friends with salespeople, or if you're making friends with doctors? You're making friends with, who cares who it is? They're people. And then, of course, you're going to separate the wheat from the chaff, and it's just going to be the same thing. You're going to meet people that are on the same journey as you or not, and you're going to detach from those people, and you're going to choose the ones that are. And it's just, if anything, it's scaling up.
Right.
Your circle's not as small anymore. Lord knows the professional baseball world. Not many people in this world get to be a professional baseball player. So the people we're around, there's not many of them. So, it's an opportunity to really get to know more and more people, and of course, opportunities to learn. But, yeah, dude, it's always scary. Always scary. And, we were talking about a little bit with the conversation I was having with my girlfriend's friend yesterday, and she's kind of dealing with the same thing with regard to change and moves and stuff like that. And she's basically moving out of the house for the first time in her life. And she was like, I'm nervous, like, growing up, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, I find in my life, I've found more peace and happiness with when I've taken on more responsibility rather than not, rather when I don't have any. The more responsibility I take on, it seems like the happier I am. And of course, like I said, there's a line to that. Like, too much is just overwhelming. It's not necessary. You know, you're not prepared for it. But if you stay within your limits, right? The more responsibility you take that you're able to do efficiently, the happier you are. And it's like, why? Like, well, humans, I guess, we're problem solvers. We want to solve things. And as long as you're giving yourself adequate time to spend time with yourself and do these things you need to do for yourself, I feel like the more responsibility you can take within reason, it's only going to help you, you know. And
what was the question that you wanted
being...
to ask her that you didn't? Because I think I thought it was gold. I really did. I like.
Yeah. So this is the first time I really met the girl. So when she said this, first thing I thought of was the Oedipal mother situation. And what that is basically, you know, you're in an environment where everything's given to you. You don't have to really earn anything. It's, you know, basically Moses, you know, sitting there until he's 7 years old. You know, never had the calling to do anything. But that's basically that, right? And and Jordan Peterson has this saying, and I've stuck with it, and it's something that I really, really love, and it's basically the calling to adventure. And basically, the principle behind it is, as a mother, if you have your kid, you want to do everything you can for it, right? And if you don't let your kid go out and live and experiencing the adventure of life and the journey of life, you're doing more harm than you realize. Because as a mother, your biggest fear is losing them, right? But what Jordan Peterson says is, if you let your kid go out into the world, they may lose their body. That's a possibility, of course. But if you let them stay home with you, they're going to lose their soul.
So your question was what?
Listen, you have two options. Would you rather lose your body, or would you rather lose your soul? But it's super deep and not something that was necessary.
I think it would have been interesting, like, had you said it, because, like, I don't know if I would have had that thought and I were you, I probably would have let it rip. And, like, I don't.
That's the difference.
You know, I know you're a little more, like, you're reserved than I am, but, like, I would have been curious on what the response would have been, because, like, I think it would have taken her back and given her something to think about. That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
That is beautiful. Dude, I think she would have shit her pants if I asked her that question.
But but it would have been exactly what she might have needed.
Yeah, possibly. I asked Hallie afterwards. I was like, "What if?" Because I asked her about that same thing, and she was just like, "That would have been something."
Right.
Like, yeah, that definitely would have been something.
But it wasn't. It wasn't out of malicious intent. You know, like I thought, it would have been at, like, I don't know. There might have been a more inquisitive, easier way to say it, but it would have been. I would have been curious to hear the answer. Yeah. To say the least.
Well, that's the same idea as, you know, knowing the people you're speaking with. You know, if it's the first time you ever talk to somebody, you don't know where they're at. You don't know anything about them. You know, if I'm talking to someone that I have some. Yeah, I know you are. Yeah, it's funny you say that now. It's maybe it could have created a conversation obviously deeper than, you know, let's say a little social gathering was necessary for. But nonetheless, the question is what sparked the thought,
right?
And you know, that's the adventures. You know, that's all you really got. So, yeah, no, that was a funny encounter yesterday. But what I was getting at was basically she's going on that same journey, you know, leaving and all the unknown and all the positives that can come from that are going to come from that. You don't know. You just gotta take that leap, you know, and
but that's where
you
learn
from the game and all these things, you know.
That's
like,
where,
what's the difference
learning.
between that Yeah, well, yeah, of course. But
What's the difference between that and what?
Between that and leaving a sport you've played your whole life. When you're deciding to retire from a sport, it's like you don't know what that world's like outside of it. Like what is how am I going to provide for my family? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Like this is what I feel like I was put on this world to do. And even though you detach yourself, from the identity of that sport, the thought and the principle that you feel like that's what you were called to do doesn't go away. So when you lose that, it's similar. It's just like, well, what's on the other side of this? What's going to happen? What am I going to experience? What is going to happen? And of course, then you experience it and you realize, well, what the hell would have happened if I didn't do this? I can't imagine my life had I not. So,
and that's always the perspective looking back. But like, there's so much fear of getting started.
Yeah, hindsight 2020.
Right, like every time you do something that's like a leap of faith or like you're trusting God, you look back and you're like, dude, that was like the best decision I've ever made.
Yeah.
And then
we've talked about that too. We've talked about that principle. It's like if you have this calling to do that, that this is the right decision for you at that moment, and you've done everything up to that point, let's say, to not earn any type of karma, to not earn the negative, and you feel like you've done everything in your power to earn the proper guidance, to earn, the right things, then you have to trust that whatever that is the right thing. That's the next move for you. That's the next calling. And then if that's the case, and you got to accept it with open arms and just keep going. Well,
and that's where that process comes into play, or like that the conversation that we had is, if you're always aiming for your best self, you'll just show up in that next adventure as your best self, and then you'll learn so much more about either what you're doing, where you're at, or like who you are. And it's just like, just trust in that process, or not, I don't want to call it the process, trust in that adventure, that it's going to lead you where you need to be.
Exactly. What changes and nothing changes.
I'm nothing, but yeah.
Essentially it's being you in every situation. Being you no matter what. Where is that going to take you? Well, you don't know, but you got to trust that it'll take you somewhere where it needs to take you.
And I know that I think you need to step out of your comfort zone, but like when I'm comfortable with myself, if I'm in a place that I'm uncomfortable, I know that if I allow that uncomfortableness to sneak in or creep in, that I'm not my best self. So it's like, okay, regardless of the situation I'm in, I know I'm uncomfortable, right? Like I know I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone, but like I know that I have to be comfortable and confident with who I am. So it's like, that's the balance, is like I'm stepping into this new realm, so let's like I'm not afraid to introduce myself if I'm comfortable. But if I'm shy and like I'm timid, like I'm afraid to, hey, I'm Zach, like, hey, I'm Neff, like this is who I am, rather than, like I'm gonna walk into the place, I don't want to say like I own it, but with some confidence, like I've been here before, even if I haven't.
Absolutely.
So it's, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it's that balance, the art of letting go, art of slowing down. All of those apply to me.
Everything. It's crazy, the lessons that you learn, they apply to everything. If you're seeking the right things, if you're seeking the right things, those lessons that you're learning that's going to make you a better person will apply to all aspects of your life.
Exactly.
And at that point, then it's just this. Success is just not a matter of, doing, let's say, what you're doing in that moment. Success is more of a lifestyle rather than, just whatever you're doing. Success is black and white, money or not money, getting the deal, not getting the deal, hitting it, getting a home run or not getting a home run. It's just, that's not the success at that point, winning or losing. The success is more the lifestyle you're creating, the personality you're creating. You can be a successful person rather than, being just a successful businessman. If you have a person, you're successful. That means you have you have a successful family, you have a good relationship with your family, with your friends, you have a good relationship with yourself. There's so much more to it that's further just that's not just in the professional aspect of being successful, and all these things they apply to everything, which is crazy. Things you can't even imagine. You learn things playing baseball, and then all of a sudden you realize it's like, wow, this helps me arguably more outside of the game than it did during. And
so
it makes you itch for that next thing.
To add on to that is like a thought I had whenever I was like towards the end of my career, like post playing TJ's, like I want to be my big league self. Like I was like, no matter what I'm doing, I would I would ask myself, what would big league Neff do? Like if I'm uncertain of what I should do in this moment, it's like, what would big league Neff do? You know, like trying to envision myself in the future. And I still think that now outside of the game, it's like, okay, like if I were a big leaguer, I am a big leaguer, how am I going to act? What is my process here? This is how I want to act. This is who I am. Like, big leagues has nothing to do with baseball. It has everything to do with who I am internally. So it's like, how am I acting if I want to be my big league self?
100%.
Okay, but
100%.
we can stop right there.
No, we don't have to.
Okay,
I mean, I was just
I hear you.
But what I was just saying was I'm gonna edit this out. But I was just saying they're gonna start. They just opened the grill up, so it's gonna get loud. So, but no, with regard to that, I agree. And the thing is, that big league self essentially is just you tying. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's you tying your big league self to the best version of yourself.
Right. My aspirations. Yeah.
Exactly. Like they're interchangeable. It's the best version of yourself. Let's say, in your mind, may be Zach in the big leagues, but that doesn't change the fact of you being your best self.
Correct.
That may be you anywhere else, but I agree with that. You
know what I mean? My big league self is confident. It's comfortable. It's me. Like it's encompassing that. Like exactly what you just said. It's encompassing like my best self. It's just the way I phrase it to myself because that's like my motivation or that's my
100%. Yeah, 100%.
It's just my terminology. It's my terminology.
Yeah, exactly. But the principle is 100% spot on. If you're not trying to act like the version of yourself that you're most proud of on a daily basis, on a consistent basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, you're not living the right way. Because then you're basically conceding to the fact that you're not being your best self in that moment.
Exactly. Yes.
So that's no bueno. No matter the mood you're in.
¿Tú hablas español ahora? Sí.
Sí, Pablo español, italiano. But like if you're not constantly seeking that, then I don't think you're seeking the right thing, So no matter the mood you're in, like it all boils down to the same thing we were talking about before, It's like be your best self no matter where you are, who you're with, what you're doing, how you feel. Just be you. And it's hard. It's hard when you're in a bad mood and you gotta go in there. You gotta just be the best version of yourself for your girlfriend, for your family. You gotta be you, and you don't want to. It sounds so bad, but we've all been there. It's humility. Get over yourself.
Right.
Fuck you. Who are you?
Exactly.
Get over yourself. This isn't about you. So, not actually tell yourself fuck you, but, to a certain extent, it's just like get over yourself. This isn't about you. And if it is, you're not doing the right thing. So, it's a constant journey, of course, and I think the things, like I said, tie together so fluidly, it's almost poetic. Things just tie together throughout life, and one experience leads into the other, but then you find yourself doing the exact same thing, being the exact same person. If you're doing it right, that's what you're experiencing. When you start changing yourself for the experiences, then I think you're going to start running into, some rocky roads, because who are you? So, long story short, that's kind of what I ran into when I was younger. When I was younger in college, this and that, that's what my problem was. I was changing myself to meet the demands of what I thought scouts wanted and this and that.
Other people's
instead of just
opinions.
being me. Yeah, exactly. So
It's a
and then
demon.
with girls too.
It's
Same
a demon,
thing.
yeah.
Change your thing for girls and this and that. When I'm at Lulu and I'm just being me, and girls want to be friends with me, not take away the sexual aspect. They just want to be friends. Makes me think, it's like, well, maybe I don't have to fucking be anyone else. Maybe I just gotta be me. Maybe
Right.
Just like me. And if they don't like me, and I know that I'm being my best self, well, then guess what? They don't need to be in my life.
Right.
Rocket science.
Rocket science.
I don't need to be friends with everybody. What? That's crazy.
That's crazy.
So it's it's just
You
you
nailed
live
that.
and you learn, man.
You knocked that one out of the park right there.
You live and you learn.
But let's kill it right there. Let's kill it right there.
Yeah.
Thank you guys again for coming. It's always a pleasure. These conversations, fulfill me and make me whole. And as you can tell, I bring the conversations outside, and he brings his conversations outside, and it's just who we are as people. So please continue to listen and give us feedback, and we appreciate you guys listening, and come back and please like, subscribe, and share with your fellow friends. We appreciate it. Thank you.